Supercut! Do you remember why I chose doing the Robe? I forget why I chose.
We were talking about movies from 1953, 54, and then Demetrius and the Gladiators came out,
yes.
And then you went,
on the Robe. Oh, I love that movie.
And then I said, all yours.
You might as well. Okay, that's true. You did say all yours as in, forget it. I'm not doing that. So, yes, I love the Robe. And it's kind of hard to say why. Except that it's not hard at all. However, it's probably not why you like or dislike it. I'm guessing. So, let's talk. The Robe. This is not going to be short.
In that case, I'm going to go off and get some tea.
Yeah, the peanut gallery wants to get some tea. I've got a lot of notes. But they're all superfluous if you don't like Roman epics, effectively. So I watched it because it's a Roman epic, and Richard Burton and Gene Simmons and Victor Mature. Well, basically you're done. And Jay Robinson needs to be mentioned always as Caligula. We will talk about Caligula. But my personal view of this, it's not really an epic because there's nothing. It's not long enough to be an epic. It doesn't have enough generations to be an epic. It's about this one guy living, one decent guy, but he doesn't know it, living in an unjust world. I think that's what this movie is about: being human in an inhumane world. And I was trying to read the book. Not that it's hard, because it's very, very well written, because it's Lloyd C. Douglas and he writes very well. But it's very thick, the book, and I didn't, I was busy evaluating the movie. But I think that was the first part that I did read of the book, is that he does want to say it's an unjust world. And the world needs justice and charity and care for each other, and that world doesn't have it. There's just the whole setup of the Roman Empire is just like, it's never going to be just in any sort of way. It's an absolute pure, I won't say pure capitalism, but it's even way beyond capitalism. It's fascism, capitalism, colonialism, slavery, everything is there. So everything that you could possibly do to make the world unjust is there. And we take one man, one very, very young man, who has everything. He's top of the pile. He's top of the, top of the totem pole? He's
nobility.
He's nobility. He is so high up that he is sparring with Caligula, who is his contemporary. He's going up against him in which he shouldn't be doing, which you see in the movie. You should not go up against Caligula because you get shipped off to Judea if you do that. But so he has hubris. He has. So I looked up, are all the 7 deadly sins, are they actually in here? Because Lloyd C. Douglas was the writer of the book, was used to be a reverend or a minister or something like that. And so I was like, that would be interesting if that is actually what he was trying to do with Marcellus, our main character. So I looked up the 7 deadly sins. The 7 deadly sins. And I was trying to see where in the movie I can find that Marcellus is actually sinning, doing these things, because he's placed so high on the totem pole. He has nobody to answer to, possibly his dad, but even that they kind of throw that off the table when his father comes to him and says, "Hey, you did a bad thing there with going up against Caligula, and you're putting me in a bad light." And all Marcellus says is, "I'm sorry, I'm such a disappointment to you." So he's, even in his on the top of the totem pole beingness, he's not actually enjoying himself, which is bizarre, because he is. So we're talking gluttony, that's one of them. So there's reference to banquets and women. Well, the banquets are in the book, the women are not, which is very interesting, I thought. It's not interesting for the movie. But the fact that they needed to put that... Well, in 1953 they wanted to put that in a movie, whereas the writer in 1942 did not want to put that in the book. And so lust and, can I say fornication? I don't know if that needs to be bleeped. So I translate that into promiscuity. Well, they immediately... set him out as like this woman comes up to him in the marketplace and says about last night, and he's like, yeah, I don't care, and then she's like, well, I don't care either, and then all the other women. So yeah, and he's already distracted because he sees Diana, and so yeah, beautiful epic love story. Avarice and greed. So I'm thinking material gain. He is accused of gambling. He does the gambling when he gets to like the crucifixion thing, and there he's gambling with the centurions. So clearly, wrath. I don't know. I translate that to anger. So he goes up against Caligula, and at this point, I'm just assuming you've seen the movie or whatever. But he goes up against the Caligula to get Demetrius, which is the Greek slave that he had met in the marketplace just before then. And I think upon second or third or possibly 30th viewing, I have come to the conclusion that he goes up against Caligula because he's just heard from Diana that she's promised to Caligula, and he's peed off. And he doesn't know what to do with himself because he can't go up against Caligula. He knows that, but he does it anyway. Because first, for the twins that he actually came there, the female twins, he was going there to get the to buy them. He loses them because he doesn't dare to go up against Caligula, and then he changes his mind, looks at Diana. There's a lot of looking at Diana. I think that's done very well, considering the stiltedness of the... We'll talk about the stiltedness. I can do that now, but... sloth. So sloth is, as far as I can tell, laziness. Well, he has banquets, he has slaves. He goes to... When he's sent off to Jerusalem, in the book he gets sent off to Gaza first. So that's a whole different thing. But he gets sent off to Jerusalem in this thing. He doesn't seem to take his job seriously. In the book he does. But his laziness is certainly when he was still a tribune in Rome. And the whole tribune thing in Rome. So they keep saying, oh, tribune, you're so highly placed tribune. By that time, I looked it up. By that time, the title military tribune for young men was given out like candy to all the senators' sons. And I don't know how many senators there are, but there are a lot of sons. And by the time that he is a tribune, it actually doesn't mean anything. And everybody knows that it's basically dilution of the title has happened at that point already. So he knows that his position is purely unearned. He doesn't need to do anything. The intro of the movie is also like a voiceover of... let's say Marcellus, but certainly Richard Burton, talking very briefly about how there's more slaves in Rome than there are citizens. The whole Roman Empire, there's only a few amount that are actually citizens. Everybody else is some sort of conquered people, and possibly therefore all of them slaves. So I don't know how far that went. But anyway... Still more sins, more deadly sins. Vainglory, I had to look that one up because I didn't know that word. Vanity is what I come up to. So he is actually, Marcellus is paranoid. He keeps saying, this other tribune was never my friend, and he's, don't need to make friends because Caligula was almost my enemy. He literally says all that. Whereas, like, how do we know this? We don't know this. All this is not in the book, by the way. This is film shortcut to get him for us to understand that he's doing, he's not doing the right things to stay in favor, and he needs to get himself shipped off to Judea, because if he doesn't get shipped off, we don't have a story. Once he is in Judea, he bullies the wine merchant, which is absolutely unnecessary. He's acting like that they made him to be. The question is, nature or nurture? Is he really that kind of a guy, or is that what everybody lets him do and told him that he should do? Got only 2 more deadly sins: pride, hubris. I know that 7 deadly sins seems endless. So the pride is going up against Caligula. That was also his downfall. But he seems to kind of like, meh, okay, I'll go to, and they know that sending him to Judea could mean death. The book makes that very clear. And the dad in this thing makes it also very clear. If it's all like blip-verty, but they do say it. But I dispute that, because there is no reason why you should die of diseases and faster in Jerusalem than in Rome. The diseases were not like they happened outside of the Roman border. That's ridiculous. So I don't see that. Maybe they're implying the standard of living is nowhere near as high. Yeah. So what? People, you don't immediately start dying if you are completely at leisure, have bread and circuses for free, and you're a Roman tribune. So maybe that's sort of like propaganda of like, we are the best, we Romans are the best, and everybody outside of our
you might as well die.
You might as well be a slave, because you're whole slavery thing. Anyway, so last one: sorrow, despair, despondency. He has apathy when we meet him. He doesn't care about anything until he meets Diana. Then he cares. And later he has a nervous breakdown over the crucifixion, and that, I think, is a very interesting thing to put in a movie in 1952-3, with our main character being like your quintessential young white cis male, privileged, well-educated, rich. He's effectively a prince. He's like 2 millimeters down from princehood, and he's got he has a nervous breakdown, and that, I think, is a very interesting plot twist. Otherwise, I think the movie would not have gripped me all these years. So the way I see it, Marcellus has nothing to strive for. He has nothing. He has no backbone, and that might irritate him, but not enough to actually do something actively, because he's just not been taught to do so. Also, he is younger than we think he is. In the book, oh my goodness, now it's somewhere in my notes, but in the book, he is about 24, and in the Richard Burton was 27, which surprised me, because he can easily pass for over 30 or over. But I had always thought he might have been like 30 or something, because of course the dad also looks a little older than the dads on TV now. That's how things go. And he's, being the only son of a senator, I'm very surprised that he doesn't have a backbone, because he's got all the education. He's supposed to be prepared to also become a senator, and he seems to be just a playboy. Lloyd C. Douglas writes stories about people that have risen to power not through their own means, and because they inherit it, and he is dead set against that. And Magnificent Obsession has that. White Banners. That's Magnificent Obsession. There's 2 movies. White Banners, I don't think, was ever filmed. But it's all about what happens if you're like the 3rd generation. The 1st generation comes and works hard. The 2nd generation really does well and makes riches, and the 3rd generation has everything going for it, can go to all the best schools, but why does it go wrong there? Okay, so how do you get somebody who is in that position to understand that life is hard, you should be charitable to other people, and justice should happen. That you should be part of a just society and make the society just. Well, in Lloyd C. Douglas books, if you've seen Magnificent Obsession and you've seen this one, people need to die. Is he saying before white, male, cis, rich people will understand that you need to be fair and like I said, charitable and just in the world, especially if you are the higher, the more rich of you have more means than anybody else and more opportunities than anybody else. Is he saying people need to die before people like that actually get a clue? Well, so far, yes, he is saying that. In Magnificent Obsession, the doctor had to die. In this one, sorry, spoiler, but it's not a spoiler because it's literally the first part of the movie. But here, various people have to die, and one of them is... and it's Rome, sure, yeah. You've got the fact that there are slaves in his entourage, that Demetrius is his slave, doesn't seem to bother him. Well, no, because he was raised in that. But in the film, he buys Demetrius, and he says to Demetrius, right, take the shackles off, and there's my house, I'll see you tonight. In the book, the bit that I fortunately did read, this happens, his dad does it. And this happens 7 years earlier when Dad wants to give him a present. Here's a lovely Corinthian for you. Well educated, 2 years older than you, and there you go. Apparently 17 is a rite of passage or something like that.
Give the guy an iPad. Really?
Give him a car. A clunker. No, yeah, it'll be a nice car if they're that rich, but...
Give him a Tesla if he needs
to. Yeah, give him a Tesla, because they're that rich. They are that rich. No, he gives him Demetrius. And the book is presenting this to us. No, I don't want to bash Lloyd C. Douglas, but it is it's no longer how we're thinking, and hopefully nobody thinks this way anymore. But the book presents it to us. It's like, that dad did a good one. He did a good one for his son. He's a nice guy because he took the shackles off of the slave he just purchased and said, here's the home, and you walk to it, and I'll see you tonight. And Demetrius is an honorable man, literally, and not even in the Shakespearean sense. He is an honorable man because Demetrius comes from just as nice a family. And it doesn't look like it in the movie, it's not clear, but you do know he's at least Greek, he's got a good education, and he's nowhere near as young as Marcellus and Diana. In the book, he's only 2 years older. And in the book, he's been there for 7 years. He's been Marcellus's personal attendant for 7 years. And he's actually, if he doesn't think about... that he's a slave and that's not okay, and he's not with his family, etc., etc., then he's kind of happy. Yeah. So that's where the book loses me a bit, because he's still a slave. In the film, he is actively miffed about being a slave. He will do he's still an honorable person. he also has nowhere to go. That's the thing, you know. He can run, but everybody has seen his face because he was bought and sold almost by Caligula, and everybody has seen it happen. Everybody in Rome. So he'd have to flee Rome and way beyond in order to get away from them. And I don't even know if that's possible because I don't know enough about that history. But I would say no.
They didn't think it was possible, so they never did it because there's no.
Where do you go? Clearly, he couldn't go back to Corinth because clearly his family was taken away. I believe the women were killed and the men were sold in slavery. It's like what, you know? It's not small, and they don't put that in this movie. What they had this huge problem with this movie. I think this is just me projecting, but it's like they had this huge problem. How do you put this big thick novel with all sorts of backstory into a film that is 2 hours and I think 11 minutes or so, and you still have to do the whole crucifixion, the whole nervous breakdown, the whole redemption arc, the whole, and then you have to have action scenes, and it's like, yes, there's action scenes, so I can recommend it for the action scenes. The two relatively useful YouTube reviews of this movie I saw mentioned how good the action scene was, the sword fight with the centurion. The sword fight with the centurion happens early enough in the book that I actually did read it, because that was the establishing. Marcellus comes to Jerusalem to establish himself as the legate, which is like the top dude, the top dog of that part. His part was Gaza. And the whole thing had been taken over by the centurion, who did not wish to let that go. So that's when they did that fight. Now, if you watch the fight between him and the centurion, which in the movie happens in the village of Cana, much later, what Marcellus does is he just goes on the defensive. He takes a couple of stabs at the centurion, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I thought he could fight better than that. And then he goes completely, he just does defensive moves all the time. And in the book it describes, because what I already was thinking is he is trying to get the centurion to exert himself, to tire him out, to underestimate him maybe, but certainly the exerting himself was described in the book. And then once the centurion is tired, he just does whack whack whoom, and he does that throwing of the what's a normal Roman sword,
gladius.
The gladius, yeah. He throws the gladius into a door, and that's the centurion's gladius, and then his own. In this one, they just do one because, hey, it's really cool. I mean, it was so filmic that I can understand. They said, we have to make this into a movie because we have to do that action scene. Now, I think they would... It was very good, but I think they would top it now. They're so much better at on-screen fighting now.
Still, they had Richard Burton, who... you have to have papers to do on stage fighting. You have to have a piece of paper, and Brits, he got his training. So I think that's probably one of the reasons he got the role, is the fighting.
That he could actually fight with a Roman type sword.
Yeah,
absolutely. You need it. You don't need much else, because for the rest of it, and then we come to the acting. For the rest of it, it's actually like, how good an actor is Richard Burton in this thing? It's like, well, not so good, but why? Because we know he's a good actor. And I was like, I don't mind. I'm just happy. I love the clothing, and it's like everything is great. It's so good to watch. It's a bit stilted, and then I'm thinking, but you've got that action scene with the centurion. You've got the when he goes around the market, pretty much the first scene of the movie, the camera goes around the market and everything is choreographed, and I'm not quite sure it's one shot, but it's very close to that. And that's like super modern. Whereas a lot of the talk scenes are just like camera over here, camera over there. We're just gonna, wide shot, close up, wide shot, close up. Very boring and very stilted. I mean, I'm not bored because I'm into the story and the visuals. It's gorgeous. But it's like, I think the director did... I don't think it was good direction. Yeah.
I think because you didn't say, but this is the first movie that is done in the Cinemascope.
Oh, Cinemascope. Oh, sorry, I didn't mention that. Yes.
The Cinemascope.
Cinemascope and Technicolor.
The problem with a movie that does the first new technique is that the director becomes very cagey of what can it do, because the turnover to what you did and what you see is too long, and he is going to be making all the mistakes. And one of the things they were worried about, because this format was so much actual real estate on the screen that people were watching was so much bigger, that now all the heads become so much smaller, and that means that you get farther away and you get stilted. So this is a problem that this movie definitely has, and I remember that it's everybody's too far away because the director is too worried that people would be coming too close.
There are close-ups, and when they are there, they're beautiful, they're gorgeous, they're absolutely delicious. But he also tries to get like the big scene, and it works. But I think settling on the 16:9 is a very good size. It's like all televisions these days are 16:9. A lot of the movies are filmed like that. Some of them are filmed wider than that, so then you get the bars on the top. But the Cinemascope business actually went around, right? It had a little bit of a curve. Yeah, if you watch the movie now, the center of the screen, which is pretty square, is good. The faces are the right shape. The more you get to the side of the screen, the faces start to get longer. And I was fiddling with the settings on my monitor, and it's like, it is like 2.2 something by 1, or I'll put it over here for the actual aspect ratio. But I was fiddling with it because I was like, I couldn't get all the faces right. And it's a DVD. It should just be proper. So I don't know. I didn't manage to get the Blu-ray because I could only find an Italian Blu-ray. And as much as
Italiano.
Yeah, and no parlo italiano. So that's a problem. If it had English soundtrack on it, I mean, and I could switch it, but it didn't.
I got you the French one.
Yeah, but the French one. So we have the DVD.
That's
yeah. But the French one just has the English soundtrack. Now it has no specials, which is for 1952, 3, 4. They will not have any specials, and which is a crying shame. There must be something they could put on there. So I was hoping something on the Blu-ray, but I never managed to get a Blu-ray. Okay, age. I talked about ages. Victor Mature plays Demetrius. He's 40 years old in this movie.
It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
It doesn't matter because they're not following the book anyway. It doesn't matter what his age is. However, at 40 years old, even if he's 30, I would wonder, not just has his mother, sister, brother, etc. father been killed, but also his wife and children. That's what I would wonder. And nobody asked that question. There's another movie after that called Demetrius and the Gladiators. And I can already give you a spoiler on that. Nobody asked that question. So, more on that movie later. Because we have a cinematic universe, the Robe. But we've got... I need to say about Victor Mature that he was actually the biblical drama guy at this time, this era. So they couldn't make this movie without him, effectively. That's clear from...
Peanut Gallery is not complaining.
Yeah, no, we are not complaining. He was known for beefcake scenes, and literally it says there, and there's literally, my quote here is, he became associated with beefcake scenes involving bondage and torture. I am not making this up. This is not fan fiction. This is for real. I'm blushing. Okay. So because he was in Samson and Delilah in 1949.
I've seen it.
He was on a grist mill. Okay. In the Robe, he was stretched out on a torture table in a Roman dungeon. In Zarak, he was being flogged. This is after the Robe. This is 1956. And in Timbuktu in 1958, he was, okay, I don't know what it means, staked out, spread eagle style under a dangling tarantula. I have not seen this movie, but report to me back when you have seen it. Thank you. Because I don't think I'm going to watch that one. However, much beefcake and much enjoyment was had, sure, by everybody. So I love now. I'll talk about Demetrius now. I love the casting. I saw interviews with people like Jay Robinson about Victor Mature, and they're all like, no, he wanted to go out golfing. That's all he wanted to do, and he's not an actor. He was not. He's just like, okay, let's make the movie, let's go golfing. And I don't mind his motivation, because he gave us all of this. I thought he was a very good Demetrius, because he's single-mindedly himself, which in the book he doesn't seem to be. He seems to blend into the slave role quite well. In the film, he doesn't need to blend into the slave role, because he's clearly just been captured, and then he's dealing, we don't get to hear about it, but he's dealing with the grief of the loss of his family, however extended it is, being taken from his homeland, and so Marcellus wants to be buddies. In the book, he is actually good friends with Demetrius, and he gives Demetrius a choice. I'm being sent off to Judea, to Gaza. It's called Minoa in the book, and he says, it's up to you if you wish to go, and if you're there tomorrow, you show up, we go together. If not, no hard feelings. You stay with the family, the Gallio family. So the position of Demetrius is actually quite difficult, because I think the script writer... Do we know the script writer? Good question. Who wrote the script? Yeah, Phillip Dunne. Okay, I'd say Phillip Dunne did a good job, because this is an almost impossible book to make into a script. There's so much backstory, and he had to... He put all of the backstory that you need, put it in the first scenes, the marketplace, and then at home, and that's it. And off we are to Judea. He needs to introduce all the characters. He needs to make us believe the various conflicts, and everything is like literally one line here, a word there, and boom, boom, boom. And I was watching and I was going, this is like a Harry Potter movie. And because I was saying that to Peanut Gallery earlier, it's like it's a Harry Potter movie. And because in the Harry Potter movies, you get effectively the action. Okay, we stand still for a second. This is not the last two movies, but most of the other movies. We stand still for a second. Harry says something. He's like, oh, goodness. Now what? Then Ron says something that is not going to work. And then Hermione says something really, really cool out of left field. And then Harry says something, right, we're doing this now, and off they go again. Run. Because you can't do long dialogues when you have so much action and so much story to tell. So anybody who says this movie is boring is incorrect. You can say it's not filmed how I would like it. Please make a new one. I would love that. Can we have Chris Pine as... Oh, he's a little on the old side now, but I think Chris Pine would be great as Marcellus. He could also be Demetrius. I'm good with that. We need to find a very, very... some extremely awesome cast for that. Oh, no, I'm already starting to cast it. No, back to Demetrius. So he is saying he's new to this Gallio family. Marcellus is of the Gallio family. And at the same time, he needs to be, in this movie, he needs to be told he's just coming with Marcellus to Judea because he has no choice. And then, by the time we get to the crucifixion, and the storm starts to blow up, and Demetrius has had enough reason to say, okay, I can no longer be with these people. That's where it falls down, because if he has 7 years of growing up, if he was a 19-year-old and now he's a 26-year-old, and he grew up side by side. Well, he did his young adulthood side by side with Marcellus. I can understand that he takes that long to say, I'm out of here. You do you. I cannot. But he takes... So the movie is kind of telling me that he's taking being loyal to the family so seriously because that's his honor system. Okay, that's a way to go. But he did the beautiful scene in the bathhouse where Marcellus effectively starts giving the pouch of money, which has silver pieces and gold pieces in it. A couple gold, some silver. Aha, we know where the silver's going. Needs to be given to the centurion in order to find somebody to rat out Jesus. He's not named. They call him like the fanatic. But that's where we are at that point, because it's already Easter, and Marcellus orders Demetrius to give the pouch of money. So Demetrius actually holds the money. Demetrius is not bound. It's all in his head. And if you live in a world where that's how everything is, would he? What does he need to run away? What does he need to say? Finally, that's enough. I'm in a different country now. I cannot be. Even for his own honor, he cannot be. But his honor got changed when, he looked in the eyes of Jesus and all of that. He realized that his allegiance was going somewhere else. So all of this is very difficult to put in a film where you have no time to explain all this. And I think they did it very well, and I think they had the right actor to do it, because he's so, he starts to get more taciturn, even more so than at the beginning, and he actually hands over. It's so painful to see him hand over the pouch of silver to the centurion, and then he runs, and he has a moment with Judas, which I thought was a very daring scene for 1952. To put Judas in the film, and Judas says, "Tell them not to doubt." And I think that may be the message, that apart from justice, charity, stop doubting. Obviously, it's about faith and stuff. So you tell them not to doubt but the message doesn't get through, because he said it to Demetrius in the middle of the night on the streets. And where does he go? So fortunately, Demetrius then ends up in Peter's entourage. But that's the story of Demetrius. I would like to still talk about Diana, and she is in the book. She is, get this, 15. Yeah. So we will go with the Diana in the film. The Diana in the film is 23 years old. They established that very, very clearly. Because I think they were also like, But that's what people did in the Middle Ages. 12 was a perfectly normal age to get married. It's in Romeo and Juliet. The mother says that I was married by your age, and Juliet is only 13.
Specifically in Roman society, 12 years is a marriageable age for a gal.
Yeah.
The boys, different story, but girls, yes.
Yeah.
So she was considered to be grown up enough to take part at 15.
Yeah, at 15. So that's where my knowledge ends of Diana in the book, because I managed to get to like the Passover bit. But in the film, she has so much agency if you look for it. Because first I thought, okay, well, there's another woman and she's just standing there being pretty. She's like really pretty. Like so pretty. Absolutely the most. And the clothing. I looked up the clothing. She's in pink, a complete pink outfit, and she has these shawls. And women in Rome were modest if they wore something over their head, and the more you wore, the more modest they were. And so she needed to be super modest because she was promised to Caligula. So now we find out very early. We find out that she is so high up in the hierarchy, possibly even higher than Marcellus, because she, upon the death of her parents, she was in the household of Tiberius and was supposed to marry Caligula. That was the point. That was the plan. And then, she's still in love with Marcellus. She will always be in love with Marcellus. And she goes up against Tiberius's wife, who is the one who says, you must. That's, I think her name is Julia. Aren't they all? And so that's like agency tick box number one. Then when Marcellus gets sent to Judea, she beseeches Tiberius to get him back. She actually manages to do that. It's like, okay, it's in a letter, but she did that. And it's like, wow, she has power and she's wielding it. And if she was really 15, that was like, whoa. But then, at 23, she really should have been married already at 23. Like, yes, I get it. But so this movie is saying, let's give the power to them. At least the scriptwriter said it. Let's give the power to the women. There's not a lot of women in it. Pontius Pilate at one point says, I had a horrible night and even my wife had an opinion, which clearly states... These lines are very, very good because it shows you what the society is like. You don't only have slaves who have nothing to say about anything, but the women have nothing to say about anything either. They're supposed to just sit there and birth children, as usual. Part of how the women are portrayed in the film, I think, is also because it's the 1950s. I don't know if the Peanut Gallery has an opinion on that, but the 1950s, they wanted the women back in the kitchens, homemakers, don't go out to work. But even with that, she has a very good role. I mean, I wouldn't say go watch the movie just for her. If you're a fan of Gene Simmons, absolutely.
Yeah, but then you've seen it.
Yes, you will have seen the movie and you know what I'm talking about. It's like, oh my god, so good. I mean, and I was talking about, is the acting bad? Well, no matter what lines they gave her, her acting is great. She is, the two best actors in this thing is her and Jay Robinson, is what I think. Not because Jay Robinson as Caligula actually puts down like the best acting performance in the world, but oh my god, to stay up on that high insanity for so long. And everybody's talking about it. They're all going, oh, did you see? Oh, that was with that crazy Caligula. And he was 23. I looked it all up. It's like, okay, but what kind of acting chops does he have? He's 23 years old. This is his first movie ever. And he was going to go for it. And this is the perfect role to go for it. And all his career, everybody's still forever talked about the Caligula that he did. And he also reprises the role in Demetrius and the Gladiators, which I will do a video about later. Marcellus and Diana, I will talk about Caligula, but as Marcellus and Diana, there's really good kissing, and I was wondering about the ending. she says, I don't believe what you believe. Because by that time, Marcellus is an evangelical missionary, effectively, to put it in modern terms. And that's what he does. And that's his life. And when he gets back to Rome, they come into contact again. Which I think is very sad that he didn't send for her. He didn't want to have this life for her, because everybody thinks that if you don't live in Rome, suddenly your life is over. Well, clearly not. Everybody else is living somewhere else quite well. So I think that's a big shame. That's again his upbringing, probably, that made that happen. But it's very, very sad. So they don't have a lot of time together. But when he says, "Okay, I can swear allegiance to Rome, but I cannot deny my God," and then she says, "You're still my husband." Again, that is agency. It might not be what I would do or somebody else would do or whatever, but it's what she wanted to do. And she does this thing, like Caligula says, no, you don't have to, because he's gonna die, so if you go with him you have to die too. And she's like, but we haven't convicted you of anything. And then she goes, and she's like, I do not want to live in a world ruled by you. And she just goes, and wow, the power, like, you know how Barbara Streisand is like a really powerful actress, and you wouldn't expect it from Gene Simmons, but it's that same kind of power. It's like, yes! Okay, so... But they die. Yeah, but they do die. So yeah, spoiler! Spoiler, they all die. Yeah. Demetrius does not die. Demetrius is saved. That's the whole thing, is that I think the human sacrifice bit is very heavy in this film, because Marcellus himself has to sacrifice himself to get Demetrius out. Could that have been done another way? I would hope so. You wouldn't get the scene between Marcellus and Caligula and him doing this fantastic, oath of allegiance again of Roman tribune. But I loved the oath of allegiance that Marcellus does when Peter says, "Would you like to join us?" And he says, "As a Roman, and I swear, and upon my sword, and from this day forward." And I was like, oh my God. Schmaltzy. Schmaltzy, yes. And like, no, but so good. And I wanted to say about the Diana Marcellus relationship is Marcellus' best boyfriend ever. No, he is.
He got her killed.
He got her killed. Well, she said no. He said no. He said don't do it. But he's like everything that she decides on, and he is behind it. He asks, he says what he needs to do, and then she says, well, this is what I need to do. And he's like, okay, yes. It's like, what more do you want from a boyfriend?
I wanted not to be dead.
Ideally, not to get you killed. But she got herself killed. They both got themselves killed.
He shouldn't get himself killed, because that's the...
But it was an unjust world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were leaning towards humanity. Yeah. I could go on about all the beautiful costumes. It's so beautifully done. I think it's better done, and later for the Demetrius and the Gladiators, which is filmed a little later, that is significantly not as well done. People really took the history. They looked at colors. I looked up all the colors and stuff. What would the very high place people be wearing? Well, dark yellow and purple. Now that's what they're wearing. Pink. The Gallio house seems to be like this blue and teal blue, and you can see colors are not matched. People personally are matched, but the colors in the scene is like people are wearing specific colors because that's the colors they will be wearing. And I love that. So, and there's about the robe itself. Obviously, that's a sort of like a dark red homespun. But colors were the big thing in Rome. They did it very well. I think they did a huge amount of research. The hair, the ladies, the fact that they have something on their heads, it's also done. I mean, gosh. So, yeah. For me, many reasons to watch this movie again and again and again, but I just love this movie. So, maybe you don't love this movie, and that's fine. And then you've basically, I mean, I didn't tell you everything. There's loads more to say.
Is it a movie? Is the movie a movie?
Oh, it's so good. It's a good romp. It just goes, beginning, middle, end. There's so much to get through. It's just that what it falls short in is the stilted scenes, the stilted acting, and that the script had to be so compact. If they had like 3 times the lines to really get into that particular subject and then move on to the next thing, but you need a mini-series, I think.
I didn't do mini-series.
Yeah. Just, like two parts. 2 times 2 hours. So I'd love it if somebody films it again. Please. And tell me what the cast is. Oh, it's so good. Yeah. So, well, that's, yeah.
That's your very hot opinion.
Yeah, pretty people. Lots of pretty people. Pretty images. Every image is pretty. So go watch it, have fun, enjoy, and don't worry about the religious aspects. It's all good. It gets a little preachy at the end, but Marcellus was an evangelical person by that point, so that's fair. And I think that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. And then I watched Demetrius and the Gladiators. 1954. Cinemascope, which wasn't the first one because The Robe was the first one. And they just went on and on and on. It wasn't written by Lloyd C. Douglas, who wrote The Robe. Because he wrote The Robe, book came out, book was instant success, Many years later they managed to make a movie out of it. And they also, at that time, they got Victor Mature to play Demetrius, specifically with in mind that they were going to do a follow-up movie, which was very unusual in those days. I was reading up on the various references to it, is that basically public sentiment at that time was their sequels are not a good idea, don't do them because they usually suck. So nobody was doing sequels. But for some reason, they decided to do this, and I haven't found any reference as to why. But Phillip Dunne wrote the script for The Robe, and he also wrote Demetrius and the Gladiators, and it says, based on a character created in The Robe. They do reference Marcellus and Diana several times. They make a kind of a cameo appearance at the beginning because that's just a piece from the original The Robe movie, and then they pan up, which they must have taken that shot, kind of, because film magic, you can do it at any time, of course, but they pan up when they walk out, having just given the robe away to the Marcipor, I suppose their housemaster or something like that, the head of household, who is also a Christian. This is for the big fisherman. This is what Diana does, and so the robe's going to continue somewhere. And at that moment, Demetrius is already way rescued. He's on his way out of Rome, and he is in need of a good long sick bed, which of course he's not going to get in this movie. And then they pan up, and you see this set of people, and they are, turns out, which takes me a long time to figure out, Claudius, so Caligula's uncle, his wife, Messalina. And you can immediately tell from Susan Hayward, who plays Messalina, that she is going to be a bitch. Like, one of those bitches that you go, yeah. It is cleverly written, but it's kind of like, I can appreciate the cleverness in retrospect. When I was watching it the first time, I was like, what are they doing? Why are they doing it? Because it's called Demetrius and the Gladiators. Well, okay, so in the Robe, the first scene that we see Demetrius at the marketplace, he has run away. He's trying to escape his captors, which is of course never going to happen because he's in the middle of the big marketplace in Rome. It's just that he was doing it to make a point. And then this market guy comes up and he says, "Dog's meat." Keep saying that about slaves and stuff. So, set him off as a gladiator. That's a hint to this movie. So everything was done with really thoughtful planning. And then the question is, did it work? So they wanted to make a movie about gladiators. In 1954, 3 or 2, let's assume they were writing this in 1952, it was not on. You were in the height of the Hays Code era. You couldn't do anything that was like opulent and just for spectacle alone. So let's do the Robe. Oh, we have an interesting character here. Can we then know something with gladiators later? Because he's not dead at the end of this movie, so we can use him. So that's how I think it went. Because who doesn't want to see gladiators? Who doesn't?
Do we get gladiators?
We get lots of gladiators. It pays on the selling point. You want gladiators, we will give you gladiators. You want fight spectacle, you want carnage, we will give you carnage. You want lions. Could have been tigers. I'm not sure that I know the difference.
Lions and tigers.
They didn't have big manes, so it was either female lions or it was tigers. But anyway, we're gonna get that. So that's yay. Go watch it. Have fun. But the reason for these movies was the religious bit, right? So what we also need Peter. And he shows up as played by Michael Rennie, same as in the Robe movies. So now we've got Victor Mature as Demetrius. He can go off, have the adventure, whatever he wants to. We got new characters, Messalina and Claudius. And we have Caligula. And we didn't get enough of him in the first movie. So if you feel the same, by all means, this is the movie for you. Anne Bancroft as Paula, I don't know. I'm reading the cast list for a moment. Deborah Paget as Lucia. Lucia is important because it is Demetrius' love interest. I did a review on the Robe, and my conclusion was that basically everybody is is close enough to the age that they're playing, except that Victor Mature, who plays Demetrius, is supposed to be 15 years younger than he is, because he's 40 plus, maybe 41-ish at that point. And that worked for the Robe. It's fine. He can be 40. You'd ask questions as to where is his wife and kids, but they were probably killed when he got captured. But now I'm like, wait, you have Deborah Paget. I didn't look up her age. I really should. Maybe we can have it here. In 1953 or 4, playing Lucia as his love interest. Well, but she's a young girl. She is not a girl, Certainly she can be 18 plus, but she can't be 25 plus. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. We'll see here. So now I'm thinking he is the age that he was supposed to be that he is in the book, which is about 26-ish, or maybe even a little younger. 19 plus 7 plus 1. You do the math. 28? I don't see a 40-pluser with an 18-year-old. I really, not even in 1954 for a Roman era movie. So, but it's Victor Mature, so we don't care. It's the same like Sean Connery, Roger Moore. Of course they're gonna go with the Bond girl. Whoever the Bond girl is gonna be, they're gonna be with. So, right, and Victor Mature was certainly of that standing way back. At that time, this was the end of his career, really, and he was like this big, huge Arnold Schwarzenegger type movie star. So they built this movie around him, and the numbers say they were correct. It was a very good success. The Robe was about 4 million to make, and they brought in 40 million. Demetrius and the Gladiators, because they had all the sets, I assume, and they had, of course, lots of wardrobe already. Was 2 million to make, and they brought in 20 million. Now, any movie can be super ecstatic to bring in 10 times the result. So the outlay. So it was an absolute success. It's also on the list of the top, top 10 grossing movies of 1954. Which really started off while I was rewatching it. So what is the premise and why are we doing this? The Robe was a religious movie. But was it? No, it was a drama about a guy living in, or a very high-end guy living in a world that was unjust, and he didn't realize he actually had a conscience. And a
crisis. So, he came to a crisis.
Yeah, and he had a crisis of conscience after having been ordered to, and having actually supervised the crucifixion of Jesus. That's enough to put anyone in a crisis. So, when this movie starts, Demetrius is a devout Christian, which is defined in this movie, without actually saying it, but they say it sometimes, is like, okay, because some people will come up to it and say, oh, you're the Christian, right? Okay, so, you're, aren't you going to, yeah, how does he become a gladiator? Gosh, what was the first reason that they captured him? I forget. He becomes a gladiator because... I forget the reason why he got captured, but hey, watch the movie. But the moment that they want to try him, they see that he has... his ear has had a ring in it. Sign of a slave. And so they don't believe him when he says he was freed by his owners. And they basically just give him to Claudius's household. How that works, I don't know. They're Romans, but he is thrown in with the gladiators there, and then of course he's like, "I'm a Christian. I will not fight. I will not pick up the sword. I will not do it." And he goes in, and then what I really like is the character of Glycon. He is played by William Horace Marshall. He's an American actor, director, opera singer. And when he opens his mouth, ooh, it's very pretty. He has a very large role in this film. He is black. He is not on the movie poster. Maybe we can have the movie poster here. So, but at the end of the movie... 3 people walk towards the camera. Peter, Glycon, and Demetrius. Okay, sorry, spoiler, Demetrius doesn't die at the end of this movie. I don't think that you care about spoilers. You just want to hear what I think of this. So, Glycon comes up to him, and they put him in the ring almost like on the day that he becomes a gladiator. So he has had no time to learn how to fight in their style, and they show everything. They got Ernest Borgnine. He's like the head of the gladiators. Everybody's doing like buff. The whole thing is about, let's get as many buff guys on the screen as we can possibly put in. Really, this is the reason for the movie. So, yes. So is it a religious movie? Oh, it's good to have plot. But it's definitely a gladiator movie. And so he says no, and Glycon says, let's just fight. Because being sent out there. Let's do the best fight we can, because sometimes the audience will let both guys live if they were very entertaining. So let's put up a good show. And turns out Demetrius can fight. Well, that's correct. I concluded this in the Robe, is that Demetrius actually comes from a similar background as Marcellus, who was like, one of the top dudes, the son of a senator, in Rome, and had all the education. Well, what's the education? It's going to be rhetoric, it's going to be history and mathematics, but it's also going to be fighting. And so it turns out he can fight very, very well. And they try to put on a show. Caligula is not amused because they see what they're doing. And Glycon says, fight me for real now. We're just going to have to go for it. And that's to the death. So the moment that Demetrius stands over Glycon, I would have to wonder why a trained gladiator actually loses against Demetrius. That is, of course, plot. But the trained gladiator should have won. But anyway, so he stands over him and he says, no, I'm not doing it. The whole audience goes like this. This, by the way, does not mean it's wrong in all of these movies. But we have established in Hollywood that this means they have to die. And this means they are going to live. Okay, fine. It's the other way around, but sure. This meant sheath your sword, and this meant use your sword. But anyways, niggly. Caligula says, okay, let the guy go. We'll bring in this is where we bring in the lions. He's going to fight the lions. Because basically he's forfeited his life by sparing somebody else's life in the arena. And that's where we get the lions. So
gotta have lions.
And so it looks like he has no problems with killing lions. He just has problems with killing people. All sorts of shenanigans happened. He ends up in the household of Claudius. And I really didn't twig for like the first third or so of the movie that we're talking Claudius. Not just like a guy in a library with a wife who does whatever she pleases and he's just like, okay, well, you will do whatever you please. This is actually Claudius. And at one point Caligula walks in and he calls him uncle, and I was like, oh, wait. I am not that... I don't know the entire history by heart, but the peanut gallery does. But Claudius sitting there in the library is effectively, as I understand it, what he did.
Yes. Claudius was older than Caligula, of the same family, uncle, but he was physically disabled and therefore... not put in any important function.
But Caligula goes to him pretty much every single time he needs to know something.
Because he is that much older and he is learned and he had a stutter and he had...
not in this movie.
Yeah. But in reality he had a lot of physical deformities that Romans didn't like, and so they tried to... But because he was part of the Claudian family, they couldn't completely sideline him. So they sidelined him to a library. And he wrote books, for mostly. And yes, his lady...
Messalina.
Messalina.
Played by Susan Hayward. So Claudius is being played by Barry Jones. And I immediately, the voice, I was like, I know this guy, so I had to think about it. But it's the guy from Brigadoon, that isn't the minister but talks to everybody like in a sort of ministerial way. It's that guy, and you go, oh, it's such a good voice. And it's so like, oh, so cozy. And then he goes, Messalina, it's basically, yeah, you do what you want. Preferably don't go to bed with this, because she's taken Demetrius. She likes Demetrius. And it's just, please just don't, But if you will, you will. Several times Demetrius goes from being a gladiator to being a house slave servant, because he's now a slave, even though he was originally freed and he shouldn't be a slave. And then back into the arena, basically at the whim of Messalina. And Messalina wants him. He says no, because he says no, he's in love with Lucia. There's a scene where we've established that. And Lucia is a nice girl. Everybody's, what were they, potterers or something like that? So he was, it sounds like he was going to go to a potterer's life. I wrote it down somewhere. What was that? It wasn't carpentry, because that would be a little, but it was pottery, I think. And she's just, the nice girl there that likes him. He likes her. They're both Christians, and all is good, right? Well, specifically the people that he stays with are all Christians, until he gets snatched. And then, so when Messalina propositions him, as in, you're my personal attendant and you're gonna attend, right? And he's like, attend, haha. No, he's not going to attend. And then she throws him back into the, in the gladiator pool. And then when she realizes that Lucia was smart enough to get herself in with the entertainment girls for the gladiators who are going to fight tomorrow, there's a whole plotline about that, because then you can have orgy. Okay, 1954 orgy. Orgy. A little bit of orgy. There's lots of food. There's lots of buff guys using dice, because that means it's illicit, right? Mm. And there's young women that are being thrown into led into the group, and after that it's just a lot of laughter behind the scenes. It's
all debauchery all off stage.
Yeah, debauchery, not much on stage. And there's a beautiful scene between them where you're actually getting the sense that they're starting to get comfortable with filming in Cinemascope rather than the 3x4, which I think is called Letterbox. And then Cinemascope, and then there's a scene where they literally have two heads. They're getting closer to the people now. I've got two heads of them. And I was like, okay, now you're getting it. But they needed 1 or 2 movies to actually realize, we can use this space. Yeah. And it's okay to get a close on them. So you got a lot of many more close-ups than you got in the Robe. It's just technical, but it's still very nice to see. And then Messalina does some bad things, and
it's Messalina.
Yes, she's very good at that. She's like bitch central, and orders this or that. And one of the other gladiators grabs Lucia, who's a very young girl and very innocent, and she screams her head off, and then faints or dies. As far as Demetrius is concerned, she dies right there. And they said she's dead. Yeah, it's a very shocking scene, really. It's like, okay, yeah, that's hysterics. Oh, wait, no, it's hysterics because literally she killed her. It killed her. And he goes, I mean, if Victor Mature doing emotions, hey, we're here for it. It's great. It's sad. Yes, it's very sad. But the point is to get him back in the arena, of course. So he grabs the sword when it's his turn to go, and he does carnage. He was praying to God to let her live, and God did not comply. Looks like. So he's lost his faith, and so this movie. I mean, he did an Anakin Skywalker walks into the school thing. That's what he did, only with big gladiators. I think it's 6 of them. And he kills them all. And I'd rather that than the Anakin Skywalker with the kids. But But it's the same point. It's like he's lost his faith. And does that mean that you immediately start killing? Is that the message? Or is the message he is so distraught and the world is so unjust that he is going on a carnage rampage? Because if we think back to, he was already made to be a slave after his own family got killed, whether that was, well, certainly it was parents, but it may have also consisted of a wife, children, brothers, sisters, or whatnot. Lover, I don't know. So how much do you need to do to a person before you go nuts? And he's very strong, and he was given a sword, and they said, fight. Well, yes. So after that, Caligula likes him, because he likes people like that, and makes him puts him in his Praetorian Guard. Now, I'm not going to tell all of it, but the fact that he's in the Praetorian Guard is important because at the end of the movie, when there's yet another gladiatorial fight, the Praetorian Guard actually rise up to protect Demetrius. Because by that time, he's met Peter again. He goes on this is a really sad storyline, and it's done so very well. And it just, the movie just keeps running you through parts of its plot, and it keeps on going. So it's not boring. It's just something about this movie that you just go, what did I just see, and do I really feel it all? And I don't know why that is. But so it's not a world-class movie, but it's very entertaining, and you just keep on going and going. And then he's found Lucia, and she's alive. And then there's Peter, and then they pray, and he finds his faith again. So is this movie, and of course, is again thrown into the arena for plot reasons. And when the Praetorian Guard, so I'm skipping to the end of the movie now, and the Praetorian Guard goes and protects Demetrius, they actually grab a spear and throw it at Claudius, because Claudius was telling them to kill Demetrius, I think. And they said, no, this is one of our guys. Because they weren't part of all of his experience of being a slave and all of this. They were part of, this is our brother in arms, who was a very good fighter. And for whatever reason, he's now in the arena. And okay, so he's a Christian. So what? And at that moment, when Caligula is killed, Claudius is right there, and they put the leafy crown, the laurel wreath, they put that on Claudius. And then I was like, now I understand why this connection with the Claudius household constantly. In the middle of the movie, when Demetrius just totally lost his faith and just thinks there's nothing in this world except for what you can get out of right now, he and Messalina go to their other estate, her estate somewhere, and live a life of sin for a very long time. And he has lots of fun. That wasn't terribly convincing. As much beefcake as Victor Mature is, he doesn't do debauchery terribly well. He's just still such a lovely, upstanding guy. So, just very beefcakey. So, yeah. I don't know. So, what is this movie? What is it trying to say? Are we a gladiator movie? I think so. I think that is really what they wanted to say. Like, we're doing Romans! Can we do gladiators? The other thing is they had a religious message in this. You've got Peter, you've got losing your faith, you've got finding it back again. But Lucia had to be alive for that. So finding your faith back because she wasn't actually dead, is that faith?
And there's the story of wanting to get revenge on Caligula for the robe. In the movie makers want to get revenge on Caligula because of the robe. Oh,
it's like we need to see Caligula killed because he was and Caligula's storyline. He tries to get the robe. He puts Demetrius on when he's a Praetorian Guard. The whole movie, all he's trying to do is to get the robe, and he's nutso because once he gets the robe, because of course Demetrius can get the robe for him. That's once Demetrius is it doesn't mean anything to him. But actually, by that time he was back on his feet. That was interesting. It's like he still gives him the robe, and then Caligula goes to his dungeon, the dungeon where he that was also in the robe. But they reused all the sets. It was great. Everybody looked great. It was beautiful. And he tells a centurion or so to kill a prisoner, and then he says something like "rise," and he holds the robe. It's like, well, at least you'd have to give the robe to the dead prisoner, right? It doesn't even make sense. And he's completely distraught that it didn't give him the power of making people come alive again. And then throughout the movie, Glykon becomes, as Demetrius rises up and down all this social ladder, Glykon becomes his personal bodyguard or something like that. He's in Demetrius's service and freed him. They do make a point of this, and Demetrius has a conversation with him when he is in his most debauched state, and Glycon's like, "It's not good, dude. Not good. Not doing a good job." He did it, of course, much better than that. But that was the message. It's like, I will serve you, but I will not condone what you're doing. And at the end, Glykon has the robe, and then they all walk off, leaving Claudius to take up the reins. And if you want to talk about Claudius,
no, I think because I have seen this movie way long ago, and roughly how Caligula was and how he came to an end is roughly correct to history. Okay. And then Claudius took up the reins because did they do the whole Praetorian Guard bit? Yeah. Yeah. And he was okay as a ruler, which was pretty new to them as an okay ruler.
What they said is that Caligula keeps starting to say, "I am a god," and his underlings keep confirming that because they're too scared of being killed. So he gets worse and worse in that. And then when Claudius is given the Caesarian laurel wreath, he says, "I will confirm right here that I am not a god, and I do not aspire to be one, and I will rule justly." And then Messalina's turn, which is interesting. They gave her actually a turn, which the robe also gave Diana her turn when it was properly her turn. And they did that in this movie as well, which I thought was very good. And she said, "I have not been a good wife, but I will be from now on, and I will be the emperor's wife as you expect one to be." And I thought that was so good.
It's too bad that the history books say something else.
Yeah, too debauched to make into a film.
She got she kept doing bad things, and Claudius didn't know. And then at some point, he got informed, and then when she was sort of ordered to go commit suicide, she couldn't. She had to be helped. Yeah,
that won't happen in this movie.
No. And Claudius wasn't very lucky with.
Yeah, and he's sort of like is very now contented or like he's just accepted that she is who she is. And she's going to do whatever she wants, and he has no power over her. Until this point. And she did live with Demetrius on her own pleasure, and everybody knew it. There's nothing Claudius could do about it. And if you think about that he was actually physically somewhat disabled and certainly socially disabled because of a stutter, and probably the Romans probably didn't appreciate an intellectual. They had their Greek slaves for intellectuals.
They only appreciated intellectuality if it came with physical prowess.
Right.
And because he didn't have the physical prowess, his intellectual, it wasn't interesting. There were a couple of teachers who took him up, but was just there.
And the rest was probably self-taught, and he had a bookcase full of stuff. In the Robe, Marcellus's father, who was a senator, has a bookcase full of scrolls. But that's the only time you see something like that. And it was in the study, specifically in that room. Romans were you walk about and you there's rhetoric and there's fighty. That's what you do.
And later, after this movie is done, when Claudius becomes emperor, he goes on a couple of campaigns to show that he is also physically prowess, at least in the greater army type. So he goes to he conquers in the British Isles, England, to show that.
Okay, I would say in this one he would be considered a bit too old to go do that. Oh, yeah, okay.
He was.
All right, no. Then that's correct casting. I would say he's in his 50s.
Yeah. He probably would be in his 40s, but looking like he is in the 50s.
Yeah. One of the things that I found touching was that Demetrius, throughout the movie, is still mourning Marcellus and Diana. Now, he wouldn't have known Diana very well, but in the book he did. He would have known Diana just as well as Marcellus did. And in... I can assume that Phillip Dunne read the book. So, because he had to make the robe outfit, the film. And then he says he believes in nothing when he's confronted by Peter about, what are you doing here, living a life of debauchery? Why, where's your Christian fervor? And he says, I believe in nothing. He says, Marcellus, Stephen, James, Diana, and Lucia, they're all dead. And who are Stephen and James? I don't know Stephen and James. Where does that come from? So that's weird. Basically, I think Demetrius is a pinball in a pinball machine. Or he must have felt like that. That was really what I came away with from the movie. Not so much a religious argument or message, or even we want to do Gladiators, although yes, they did Gladiators, but it's like, wow, this guy's just being thrown about by other people, and that is almost the same thing in the Robe, except that it happens much slower and he's much higher up the rung. Marcellus is. Demetrius is still a pinball. He was pinball then, still remains a pinball. Once with the Robe, Glycon and Demetrius and Peter walk away from the capital. I assume there's beautiful pillars. I assume that's supposed to be the Forum Romanum or Claudius's new palace or whatever. And they walk away towards the camera at the end. I can assume that they're going to go out and become missionaries again. So after that, Demetrius could actually have a life. Lucia, fortunately, she's there. And not in that shot, but she's going to be in his life. So happy end for everybody. So the question is, what is it about losing your humanity because of being pinballed about, and then recovering your humanity? Is it about losing faith and recovering faith? As I said, I find it not a strong argument when Lucia isn't dead. I would say if he recovered his faith and then it turned out she was alive, that's yes. Same for humanity, probably. In the Robe specifically, it wasn't that Marcellus could make good on what he had done. He could never make good on that. He could never retract it. So, but he could find forgiveness in the people who loved, who loved Christianity, who loved Jesus and all of that. And that was, I think that was the first, feel of unconditional love in this world, in that world. Because it's just, even his father, he wasn't terribly loving, and his mother was just a non-entity. So, and for Demetrius, we just don't see the rest of his family. So he's just this lone guy that walks around and gets pinballed about. So that was really, that's how I found this film. Visually, it's absolutely still watchable. I had trouble finding a good version. My DVD was not a remastered anything. So I hope it's out there. It was a very famous film then, but people have heard of The Robe. I don't think they've heard of Demetrius and the Gladiators. So I don't think it endured. And I think it's worth a watch. Because, Victor Mature and Susan Hayward and Jay Robinson as Caligula. And basically, that's all not small stuff. It's not small fry. And it's very, very well done. They made some adjustments for Susan Hayward for the outfits. Because they, it should fall, sort of like this shirt falls, it should fall downwards. It shouldn't be like contours around the midriff and stuff. And for her stuff, she always had a belt on, and she had stuff that made it more tightly form-fitting and things like that. And it was only her, because they did do, even the dancing girls in the debauchery scenes, they had pretty much what Roman women could be wearing. They probably wear a lot less, quite frankly, in a true debauching scene. I mean, why would they be wearing a top? But they were wearing tops. That's, yeah. I always thought they adjusted too much, but they stayed pretty close to what is fairly correct for Roman era. And I'm heartened to hear that they had the story with Caligula and Claudius was actually based on something. Because remember, this is fanfic. This is not written by Lloyd C. Douglas, who wrote The Robe. This is just the guy who wrote, this is the guy who wrote the screenplay for The Robe, decided, hey, I'd like to do some more. I have ideas. Well, us fanfic writers always have ideas, of course. So he got to do the mega fanfic. So that's cool. And that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. The Big Fisherman. Why? Well, there's a lot of whys. One is probably to pause it for here. What's the English for als je A zegt, moet je ook B zeggen? I'm asking the peanut gallery.
Put up or shut up.
Put up or shut up. Okay, well, fair enough. Okay, it's not as nice as the Dutch one, but anyway. It's kind of like I did The Robe, and I did the Demetrius and the Gladiators, and the third one is The Big Fisherman. So I watched all of them in a row, and then I was like, I just could not believe the quality and negatively and various other things of The Big Fisherman. And then it's 3 hours, and it's long, and then I have to look up exactly how many minutes, but it's around that much. And I was just by the end, it's okay, yeah. So, fast forward spoiler, The last 45 minutes are actually quite good. The problem is, who's going to sit through the first 2 hours, 15 minutes? That's really the thing. So this movie did not do well. It did excessively badly at the box office. And I don't think they expected it to. But the question is, why did they make it in the first place? Well, there's very, very many answers to that. One, The Robe was written by Lloyd C. Douglas. He also wrote The Big Fisherman, and Lloyd C. Douglas writes bestsellers, which have religious religious subject bestsellers. And with bestsellers is like when they commissioned The Robe, I think not commissioned, when they got the rights to the script. Somebody else got the rights to the script by the time it got made. It was by somebody else, but there were 2 million copies of The Robe sold. You know this is a bestseller. You know people are gonna go to this movie. And then somebody else said, we need a scriptwriter. So Phillip Dunne wrote the script and wrote the fanfiction sequel, Demetrius and the Gladiators. And then some time passed, and for some reason they decided to go with The Big Fisherman. Now, The Big Fisherman is another novel by Lloyd C. Douglas. And technically it fits into the Robe Cinematic Universe, because you can say we have Peter as the Apostle Peter. We have him in the Robe, in Demetrius and the Gladiators. Of course, in Demetrius and the Gladiators, he is purposefully put in there by fanfiction writer who got paid handsomely. I hope for him. So a legit one. So yeah, we have Peter. But is that enough to say this is in the Robe Cinematic Universe? And I kind of want to say no. Because there's nothing else that overlaps with the Robe, Demetrius and the Gladiators, that whole thing. There's nothing is in Rome. It's all somewhere else. It wasn't. I don't think the novel was intended to fit in the same universe. Yes, because Lloyd C. Douglas wrote Bible-inspired stories, but not in like the Robe Cinematic Universe. So, in a way, you can kind of like... But if you don't have 3 movies, you don't have a cinematic universe. 2 movies is just a movie and a sequel. So, maybe that's the case. Nobody said it was a Robe Cinematic Universe except for me. Because I found it. I was like, hey, it's a cinematic universe. And it made me very, very happy. So, there's many other reasons to say why. And I'm probably going to tell a little bit more about the story of the film, so that nobody else has to watch it than normal. The peanut gallery just fell off the chair. No, I am not going to do what my notes say I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about the actors, because Howard Keel, you cannot go wrong. Howard Keel, we love him. He's awesome. So if it's not, if it doesn't grab me and it's Howard Keel, then it's the writing, I'm guessing. Either that or the directing. I don't know these people. So it was directed by Frank Borzaga. Don't know. And of course, the Lloyd C. Douglas is the novel writer, but you have Howard Estabrook and Roland V. Lee credited as writers. Not a clue. As far as I can tell, I read the first part of the novel. It follows that, so it's probably what the novel said they were going to do. And if you do make a film of a novel properly, it is going to take 3 hours, so that makes sense. So then I watched it again, and I was like, what didn't grab me the first time? Because I needed to figure out how to do a review about it. And the thing is, okay, so we may have the movie poster here. We probably are seeing Howard Keel as Peter, looking like stately and impressive and all of that. And then there might be like a woman's face somewhere and some, a lovers couple kissing maybe. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But the first 45 minutes, we don't see Peter. Of course, he's called Simon at that point still. We don't see him. He's not in there. So I'm going to a movie about Peter the Apostle, originally called Simon. Fine, that sounds great. And what do I get? I get Arabia. I get this beautiful young woman. I get some Arabian princes. Two of them. I mean, she might as well have two. and then it gets better, because the second time I watched it, I had a lot more fun, because I wasn't expecting to see Peter, Simon, Peter. I knew what I was going to getting, and I was going, but I like the actress is awesome. We will talk about the actress, Susan Conner as Princess Farah. All the names are so good. You have John Saxon as Prince Voldy, her love interest, and you have Ray Strickland as Darren, her not love interest, but he wants her, of course. Because, of course, she is like the most amazing woman, young woman, very young. Let's call her 17 or so, I don't know. And then thinking, oh, right, it's gonna be this standard triangle love. No! Her mom was originally married to, get this, Herod Antipas. And this is where life gets interesting. Herod Antipas is the tetrarch of Judea at that point. I do have it in my notes, but of course I started at the wrong place, so I'm now mixed up where my notes are.
At this point in history, the kings of Judea are not Jewish anymore. This tetrarch is a Roman construct put in place.
Yes, he works for the Romans. He is so in league with the Romans that there is this opulent scene where he and his Roman buddy, this is Herod Antipas, go have their carriers, because they're on this like these benches that you lie on, you drape yourself over, and then people literally lift you up and start carrying you around town. And they order their carriers to do a race. I mean, this is perfect to show what absolute utter insane decadence is like. And then, of course, somebody, one of the losing party is going to tell off one of his slaves. I think he even kills him or something like that. I mean, literally, you're being shown this society has gone completely to the dogs, and it is the top dog that rules. So Herod Antipas is sold out to the Romans. He is ordered to marries this, our Princess Farah's mother. Well, we're gonna have to have it over here because I don't know the name. And then of course she has a baby, and then we have Princess Farah, right? Except that she was called Esther at that point because she wasn't Arabian at that point. No, she was Jewish, or like half and half. How did she get to be a half and half? Maybe the mother was Arabian. So the mother, see, it's complex. So there's lots of story there. Basically, she takes the kid to what is named as Arabia, whatever that is, wherever that's supposed to be. After Herod Antipas 2 times her with somebody else, some other woman, and they're being quite overt about it. So she just up sticks. So our heroine grows up in Arabia with horses and princes and and sand. So the mother is actually an Arab. I just checked. The mother's an Arabian princess, which is how Farah got to be half and half Arabian and Jewish. And her father is Herod Antipas, the Tetrarch of Galilee, not all of Judea. I suppose that would be a much bigger role. Oh, question from the
Does this
peanut.
movie have too much damn plot?
Yes. This is the thing. That's why I just got yes. It's got so much too much plot. And that's the thing is, the first time I was watching this, I didn't realize it was so rammed full of plot. And the second time, I knew what was coming, and I was realizing, wow, they're really pushing this plot through and through and through and through, because all of this is the first 10 minutes, and then she has to. The mother tells her who her actual father is, because one of the princes wants to marry her, and that's not possible because she's not actually completely Arabian, and da-da-da-da-da, and, there's all of that that's in there. Yeah, we know that is not okay, but that is definitely part of the plot. And then the mother dies, of course, was already dying, but dies at the moment that she's just said, this is your actual father is Herod Antipas, and we have a blood feud with him, and everybody on this scroll has failed in killing him. So what does our very, very cool hero lady do is she cuts off her hair and puts on the trousers and other robes and boy clothes, and gets on a horse after literally stabbing herself with the knife that is supposed to be the one to kill Herod Antipas with, and paints her name in blood on that thing. I mean, yes. So awesome. So off she goes, and lots of adventures ensue, and she eventually meets John the Baptist, as one does. And John the Baptist is the first one that actually realizes that she is a she, which through that point I was just completely and utterly delighted by the gender flipping. This actress does it fantastically well. I mean, I actually, upon rewatching, it's very cool. But it's a kind of glee you get when you know a story and they're doing it quite well, and you're just like, oh, here it comes. If it's the first time around, I did not have that at all. So John the Baptist sends her to Peter, because really this is she got mugged, and all her stuff got stolen, her money, her good clothes. But the thing is, she was wearing boy clothes from an Arabian prince's house, and she's now in Judea, and that people can see it. Literally, she's like, no, you need like crap clothes. This is far too good. So she does a trade with another boy, good clothes for bad clothes, and then ends up under the boat in Peter's fishery thing. And Peter has problems. Simon has problems at that point. Howard Keel, that his John and James apparently work for him, and they are they're constantly going up this hill like this preacher guy, not preacher, this
And they don't do any fishing.
Yeah, and they have this look on their face, and it just annoys him no end, and he's like, he has no patience for it. So he fires them on the spot, and then he's like, okay, boy, come over here. You're now hired. I liked his mother-in-law. That was very, very cool, very well done. He takes the boy home, takes the girl home, flings it at the mother-in-law. Apparently his wife had died or so, and there don't seem to be any kids, but whatever. And the mother-in-law, the delicing scene. Delicing? What would you like? I thought that was actually a rather important point in the movie. It's very short, but it's the 1940s or 50s idea of what back then, around 1st century, they would be doing if they needed to delouse somebody. And she gets very specific instructions of stand in the middle of the room and do not touch anything. Take everything off, but at that point they think he's a boy. Take everything off, hand it through the window, and I will burn your clothes. And I will hand you something else. Well, by the time clothes start coming out, because like the undergarments have to come out as well, the mother-in-law has figured out that this is not a boy, and then gives her daughter's clothes, and of course she looks absolutely stunningly gorgeous, because they're absolutely stunningly gorgeous clothing. And then starts to look for a job, and because she's well educated, she speaks 3 languages, 4 languages even, I think. I wrote them all down. Arabic, Aramaic, must be Hebrew, and Greek. It would be fun if I found where that... Oh yeah, here it is. Yeah, so she had a Greek governess. And so she applies at Herod Antipas's court as for a job, and they say, we need translations from the Greek because we have old scrolls that have prophecies and they're in Greek. So she sits there, and I liked that it's saying she is self-sufficient. She's making her own money. Hello. So that by itself, we're talking 1959 for this film, and there were a lot of films that did not have that kind of powerful female protagonist in it. And so far, this movie has literally been about her. Then it launches into Simon Peter. So it has 3 hours, so you have time to follow multiple characters. But... so like I said to start with, Howard Keel cannot save this part. It's not just that they didn't give him the chance for first 40 minutes. It's that when he's there, he has to be this guy who's just concerned with fishing, doesn't believe that God takes care of anybody who doesn't take care of themselves, kind of thing. And he's just completely... he is... a little on the simple side, and there's no reason for him to be simple. And so when he ends up going, everybody by that time is going to Jesus's sermons, and so eventually he ends up going as well, kind of like, gotta check this thing out because everybody's going on and on about it. And then this woman has a baby and says, can you please bring this baby to Jesus? The baby is blind. And he does, and then he's up close and personal with Jesus. And of course, baby can see. How you can tell that a baby can see that? I thought that was a little... If that made it a toddler would have been better, but I suppose, whatever it said is what it said. But then Jesus touches his shoulder. He looks into Jesus' eyes. And here's where the movie loses everybody. The entire audience. Jesus is off screen. This is 1959. And in 1962, they made King of Kings. And that was the first time that American films put Jesus completely on screen, told his story, blah, 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 blah. And there was, this whole search for the actor to play him. It was Jeffrey Hunter. The film is still on my list to watch. I've never actually seen it. So, we'll see. So I can't comment on that film at all. But the massive importance is we get to see Jesus. In the Robe, you had a little bit of like the Easter. They're coming into Jerusalem and he's in the distance on a donkey and you kind of see him in the distance. He passes by when Demetrius looks up at him, and you can do that because it's all of 15 seconds. But this movie has a Sermon on the Mount, the complete sermon. They have Jesus asking Simon, John, James, and was it Andrew? Another one. 4 of them at the same time as, can you please come and be my disciples or apostles? And it's all off screen and it doesn't work. Nobody can save this. Howard Keel cannot save this movie. Nobody can save it. This is just not doable. So I think I feel very bad for Howard Keel, quite frankly, and for Susan Kohner, because they do such an awesome job. It is a good movie. It's certainly in the style of what they were doing then. They did it with lots of gusto, lots of aplomb, and the costumes are gorgeous. That's another thing about this movie. It's not out on DVD. It's not out on Blu-ray. Probably because it failed way back when. But it's on YouTube. And the film was filmed in Panavision, which is 70 millimeters. It's even wider than Cinemascope that the Robe was in. They were trying to be innovative again. And on YouTube, unfortunately, only the beginning credits are like that, and the rest is boxed, like 3x4, 4x3. So all television style. And it's not filmed to compensate for that, because by 59, widescreen was widescreen. People were expecting widescreen. They were not expecting it to go on television ever. So yeah. Spoiler: she does not kill Herod Antipas, because killing is bad. So pivotal point for her is that she also listens to Jesus, and is not necessarily a disciple, but she's not anti. But she thinks about the blood oath that she took to avenge her mom, and she is eventually in the position to attack Herod Antipas, because she's in his library most of the time, and he wanders in and out, and he has conversations with her, and then she wants to do it, and then realizes she keeps hearing, effectively, thou shalt not kill. I do think that it also underlines her agency, that she gets to make that decision, and she does make that decision. This woman, she rocks. Seriously oomphy stuff going on there. Even to the point where the prince that she does want comes to find her. And then when she wants to go with him, and they want to go back to Arabia. Simon Peter, by this time he's called Simon Peter because he's been, dual named by Jesus, and he takes her with the boat to Arabia. Again, I'm asking, where is it? Because that's very vague. I need a map now, but they don't provide one, so never mind. When they get there, there's some demonstration of Peter's strength and power by that time. He is a full apostle, and he has powers. The prince that wanted to marry her and that she didn't want, he had been stricken by some type of disease, maybe polio, and couldn't walk for whatever reason. And suddenly, that part, I'm guessing it's probably in the book. Or maybe it's so haphazard that it's not in the book and they tried to make it bigger than it was in the book. I don't know. But so I didn't read that part. I come in and then he asks Peter for, please, can you make me walk? Well, only if you have faith. They'd make a big deal out of that. And real demonstration of faith. And then Peter shows his power. And he does have the powers. So the man can walk. And literally turns around after Peter's left and says, so now we kill everybody. So not everybody who converts in this film actually is serious about it. So again, there are good bits about that because there is variety in this movie, and yeah, that gets punished, seriously punished. God cannot be trifled with in this movie. So, and then, but because he dies because of having done this, that means the prince that she is in love with, Prince Voldy, is now the next one to become king. But he cannot marry a half-blood Arabian / Jewish girl. So rather than he was going to do it anyway, and rather than having him do that, she goes with Peter back to Judea. And again, agency. She decides to do it. That I disagree with her decision, that's my problem. But she decides it, and that's where the movie ends. And then it's like, okay, so what does this have to do with the robe? With Demetrius and the Gladiators? Nothing. There were some Romans in there. It is set in the same time. But, what you need in order for a cinematic universe to actually be fitting in each other.
Is it a matter of the format? Of first showing how rotten the Romans are, and then having somebody to make decisions about that, and then going with God, basically.
Yes, very much the same theme. Yes, the decadence of the Romans, the Roman rule itself. It's in all three the movies. That is the big bad. Is how society is. So in that sense, yeah, it is still that same cinematic universe. Yeah, you lose it because you don't have the same actor for Peter in the first two films, but then again, you didn't have Howard Keel in the first two films. So what you gonna do,
The guy that was in the Robe, because I remember Peter from
Michael
the Robe,
Rennie, yeah,
was very good also.
He's very good. Yes, he's got a fairly small part in the other two movies, but he's always named as and him. But I think because they could get Howard Keel. Now the other problem with this movie was Howard Keel was a singer, and the media raked the movie over the coals that they made him the main character, which clearly from what I've just told you, he is not the main character. She is the main character. And they make him the main character in this big epic drama, and there is no singing. All of the media was so down about that it's like this could never have worked.
I don't disagree, because I think indeed the best quality of Howard Keel is also that singing voice.
No.
It's not his only reason for existing, but it makes him from pretty good to really, really good.
Yeah. And this script and the having to act in awe of Jesus, where you don't actually see Jesus extensively. Also, literally, he has to do a scene where he is talking to God. That is not easy. I mean, he has to talk to himself because he really doesn't have anybody else to talk to. It's kind of like he's not a natural prayer person. So he stands there and talks to God for like 2.5 minutes or something like that. That's
not easy.
No. If that was a song, yes. That absolutely, that would work. But not, people don't stand there in the middle of the night just talking to the sky. I just don't see how anybody could have saved this movie. And it's not the actor's fault. No. And there's a romance. And it's epic. And there's bromance. There's
but the romance is not the title characters.
No.
And
why is there a romance?
But the other question I have with the title, The Big Fisherman, yes, it refers to Peter, but it also refers to Jesus. And so it refers to the two people that this movie is really not about.
It's almost not about, yes. We have 1/3 of the movie is Peter, Simon Peter. And it's
none of it's about Jesus.
No. and that's a mistake. They should, if you're gonna put Jesus in, put Jesus in. And they looks like they realized that, because 3 years later they put Jesus in. And I've not heard much about the King of Kings, but that must have been quite a happening. So from Howard Keel, let's talk about Susan Conner, who plays Esther, also Princess Farah. Esther is her Jewish name, original name that she was when she was born, and she goes back to that name when she goes in. But so the actress is she also was in Imitation of Life, which is a Douglas Sirk movie with Lana Turner. It's also 1959, same year. In that movie, she plays a black person who can pass for white. It's a very interesting movie that I watched twice and would love to do a review on. Got a thumbs up from the Peanut Gallery. Because there's a huge amount to say, and I love Douglas Sirk movies. He is so thoughtful. And so she also was runner-up for playing Anne Frank in the Anne Frank movie in 1959 again. So, busy year for her. She missed out on doing that one. I think she could have done it quite well. I don't know how successful that movie was, but certainly better than The Big Fisherman, so she would have been better off with that. But I know this was a more fun movie to do. Her mother, yeah, I am going there. Her mother was a Mexican actress, and is worth mentioning for two things. One, she was, in the day and age, she was an actress in both Mexico and in Hollywood. So, hey, go mom. And she lived to a whopping 106 years old.
Go mom.
I mean, hello. So, Susan Conner is still alive.
Go Susan.
So, if you're watching this, you did a great job in this film. Very, very cool. Susan Conner's father is a Czech Jewish Hollywood producer. That makes Susan part Mexican, part Jewish, Czech Jewish, which makes her the perfect actress to play Princess Farah, who is part Jewish and part Arabian. So, I just wanted to say that even by our current day standards, that would have been appropriate casting. And, I would have liked to have seen her in more stuff, but certainly Imitation of Life is one. You watch it, you never forget. Continued on the life of Susan Connor, she has 2 sons, at least. I don't know if she has any other. Paul Weitz and Chris Weitz. Now, why am I mentioning this? Because Paul Weitz is known for About a Boy. Various other things like Mozart in the Jungle, Chris Weitz is Paul is a director, writer, producer, and Chris is a filmmaker, producer, screenwriter. Has done Ants, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, American Pie, About a Boy, The Twilight Saga, New Moon, The Nutty Professor 3, etc., etc., and The Gold Compass, etc., etc. So, let's just be clear. Susan Connor has definitely made her mark on the world of entertainment. So, and he's still alive, so go Susan. Totally awesome. Quite frankly, why was this not the Princess Farah story? Why is it the Big Fisherman story? It's barely the Big Fisherman story. I mean, the Robe is literally about the Robe.
Demetrius and the Gladiators
is literally Demetrius and the Gladiators. So
Farah and...
If this film had been advertised as for what it is, namely a very kick-ass story about this young woman who has these huge adventures and a love story, but not like a love story where, you know, getting the guy is the be-all and end-all of it. It's not a Cinderella story by no means at all. And with biblical connection, great, that would have worked. You got the Arabia, you got the Judea, you got the Romans, you got all the costumes and the drama and the chases and, well, a few chases and some boats.
We like boats.
And some miracles. I mean, what's not to love? But it wasn't. It was advertised as the Big Fisherman. So this is what's wrong with the movie. It's not Peter's story of becoming an apostle. It's in there, but it's not his story. What is good about the movie is Princess Farah, obviously. And she is a princess, so I was like, I got that whole Disney vibe going with Princess. Oh yeah, Disney actually produced this. No, I'm not kidding.
So she is a Disney princess.
She's a Disney Princess Farah is a Disney princess. Yes. According to Wikipedia, Disney does not do religious dramas. I'll buy that. But one of the sons of Disney really wanted to do this and, pushed it on through. I don't know. It wasn't successful, but then again, a lot of Disney films that were live action at that time were not successful. So, does that mean anything? I don't know. I don't think that the production was any less because of that. It wasn't as pretty as The Robe and Demetrius and the Gladiators. But that was a completely different company.
Is it because you saw it in the television format and not as intended? Is that costing it?
It is costing it because when you really want to look at it properly, the costumes are gorgeous. Yes, we are looking at the late 50s, and so the women's costumes have that they kind of want to put that tight
pencil skirt thing in.
Yeah, the belt around, and then a little bit too tight around the chest and stuff. That is not what the Romans were wearing. But other than that, it's very classy, and especially Herod Antipas. He has loads of big bobos over at his place, and the women as well. And everybody's wearing is absolutely drop dead gorgeous. And of course, in the Arabian. The Arabian stuff is more like tent stuff, so you don't get like a castle or anything like that. But what everybody's wearing is again drop dead gorgeous. But you're missing the nice colors, and you're missing the sharpness, and you're missing the widescreen, and so
And it is all there in the original.
It is there. You really need a good transfer from an original film, like the original, yeah.
The original print, yes.
Yes. So I did think actually that the religious stuff was put in well. Apart from what I've already said, no off-screen bullshit, that doesn't work. There was a little bit of a commentary by people that the way to show awe and being finding Jesus, or however the terminology is that it was there's very much this look up and be in awe and constantly do that, and that's stop that. That's do it for a moment and move on. But I think they were figuring out that they were again transitional period. It just wasn't working. They did it once in the Robe, where Demetrius sees Jesus, and that's enough. You can't base a whole or a third of a movie on it. So there are, however, reasons why this movie will never be watched by anybody again. Other than that, it's really not. You can't find it other than press on YouTube. Of course, yeah, you can find it because it's on YouTube, so it's easy enough. But it's not pretty on YouTube. So I want a pretty version. Thank you, please. I thought for the first time that I watched it that they were using brown face on Susan Conner in the first scene, but not in the rest of the movie, and I'm now not sure. It could have been the lighting. So if it is brown face, then obviously that is no longer acceptable, but it may not have been, so I don't know. The movie's too long, that's certainly true. Cut at least half of Simon Peter's stuff out of it.
And change the title.
Change the title? Well, that's it. Title. That's yeah. Yes.
You've told us not to watch it, but would you?
No, I didn't say not to watch it. I said it's not likely people are going to watch this movie.
Would you watch it again?
Yeah, I'd watch it again, especially if I get a good quality one. Otherwise, I've now seen it twice, pretty close together. But I would love to see the pretty. I know the pretty's there, and I want to see it. And it's Disney did make pretty stuff. It still makes pretty stuff. So apart from that, I can tell that all the costuming is gorgeous. It's like you clean that thing up, it's going to be probably stunningly gorgeous. Yeah. And it's not boring. It's just, put on the tin what's in the tin. That is really one of the most problematical things with this film. Yeah. So, that was my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.